Mr. Phifer, we are just a few days before an official opening of the Museum of Modern Art in Warsaw. We still don't know what will be the reception of the visitors, but I'd like you to imagine something. Let's imagine that there are 9 ladies, the muses, and they have already visited this new temple of art in the heart of Warsaw. What might be their response to the design proposed by Phifer and Partners?
Well, I think certainly it is what I call a vitrine of light. Light is the foundational material. And if you think about this white building holding and containing light, it weaves together the city of Warsaw with the light of Warsaw. It weaves together the light with the experience of the art. I think that sharing of the atmosphere of this place with the art will be one important moment for the building, one of the muses. I think the second point is that this is a building for people to encounter the art and to encounter each other, that this will be a new town square, a new piazza, a new place to meet each other and to experience what I call this voice of this generation here and become a remarkably symbolic place that speaks about this generation and the future.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of art, I wonder, what is your meaning of the term modern art, and how did that shape the design of the Museum of Modern Art in Warsaw?
Well, what I love about this museum, the collection is grounded in works by artists from this country, rather than this view that you have to have some American artists, some German artists, some Swiss artists, that it's not based on this European view of modern art. This is Polish modern art. And it speaks to this voice of this generation and maybe the last generation of artists here. So it speaks about a fresh voice. There's a little gallery on the ground floor that I like to call the reaction gallery. It's the way it was listed and an artist there is given a month to come up with an installation that reflects his view of what's going on in the country and the city. And you can come in and experience that on the ground floor inside the arcade. And so it is a building that is so embedded in the culture here, so embedded that it's not showing what I would call Bryce Martin and Jeff Koons and Richard Serra and all of the normal artists that a lot of museums collect. It is about this place. And that is what is going to give it its authentic voice.
I'd like to ask you about the facade of this building, because it's almost all white. How would you explain your choice?
I wanted this building to have a presence in the city, a presence. It sits between the palace, which we all know the history of, and the commercial on the other side of the boulevard. And it sits between those two. And this building had to be a building that was strong, that was heroic in scale, that had a sense of permanence. And when you combine that with this whiteness, it means that the art can live in this building and be present against this white. That it never gets confused with colors, never gets confused with different materials, never gets confused with the usual decoration. That the art needs to be the most present event in this place. And so hence, we had this idea, because the building wanted to be heavy and strong, we wanted it to be white concrete, so that it had a lasting presence, a presence of permanence, that this institution was here and it had been placed next to the palace. And so then, one of the stories that I love about the development of the building, you know, it's built right over these subway tunnels that were there. It took almost 1.5 years for the building to get its foundation up to the ground floor, because there weren't a lot of drawings about what was down there. So they had to excavate. And the structural engineers found these special huge beams that spanned over the subways. And they couldn't put the columns just anywhere. They put them on this particular rhythm. Some of the bays are bigger, some are smaller, and they all run perpendicular to the boulevard. And so that pattern, those columns, continue up as the rhythm of the structure in the building. So when you look at the exposed structure up there, we wanted to expose that. We wanted to expose how the building was held up, first of all. But then that rhythm, these enormous beams, are expressed in the architecture. And that is like the archaeology of the site, this kind of excavation to find this pattern, this rhythm where these columns are, is a reflection. And so that comes up and structures the building. And finally, on the top floor, as my favorite architect, Louis Kahn, said, that the light, this light of Warsaw, is filtered through these structural beams, and it connects the architecture with this place.
Speaking of building on subway, was it the biggest challenge for you and for constructors?
Oh, yes. Yes, building here. We're just now starting building the theater behind it. It's a normal foundation over there. You know, you dig a hole, you pour, but this, because it was over a subway, it took an enormous amount of engineering technology, Buro Happold, to engineer that and to get it up, and then to see that coming up through the building is a real, you know, it's honoring this place, I think. And the facade is very uniquely constructed too, out of white concrete. It hangs like a shirt in a closet. And it sits on these 2 plates that slide back and forth to deal with the expansion and contraction. So they're all sitting there, and you know, in the summer it moves, in the winter it moves just a little bit, you know, and so it's a very innovative facade there as it sits there in Warsaw. You can see these little tiny joints that are going around that are the expansion joints. So there was an enormous amount of important engineering that took place.